So even out in Arizona on the Gila River in southern Arizona by Gilespie Dam, has some photographs of the rocks there. You can see the petroglyphs, but you can also see all the different color variations and all those different rocks laying on the ground and all along this rock face. And it's all part of a scene. If you adjust the colors, you can see even some of the orange and blue colors that are there that we just can't see with our eyes, but the photographs pick up. And this next one's pretty amazing. Newspaper rock in the Petrified Forest National Monument in Arizona. Has a multitude of petroglyphs on it, but if you start adjusting colors, outlining all the different shadings and variations in the rock, you see these different figures, and it's pretty amazing that there can actually show the reflection off of this guy's helmet and a suit he's wearing that's transparent. Figure on the left is lifting this helmet off, and you can see the burst of air coming out, because it's pretty common in prehistoric art that people had these suits that they were wearing. Different characters, every way you turn it. Look at it for a while, it's pretty amazing. So go to Chaco Canyon. There's probably a petroglyph panel. A lot of people have walked by if they've walked out to Penasco Blanco. You can see a multitude of petroglyphs on this rock. If you adjust the colors and you zoom out a little bit, you realize that in every orientation it forms a head of a man who's balding. It's pretty amazing that you can create the same face 4 different directions. And you can see the stepped light areas on there that were part of the artistic technique they probably used to align where the nose and the eyes and everything would be, so that you could create one of these figures that you can flip any direction. But this panel gets even more amazing when you start looking at it closer. Now, I'm sure people who have watched my videos think I'm probably some crazy ancient alien guy, but I'm not. But I can't deny what I see in prehistoric art. And it's pretty common to see people in helmets and to see, in this case, people in transparent helmets. You can see a person's reflection on the right side of this panel when oriented like this. Note also that all the petroglyphs and everything just make it look like some sort of science fiction character. And then if you look at the top, it looks like space. Maybe even constellations. It's pretty crazy stuff. And when you flip it over, it's the same thing. A guy in a suit wearing a transparent helmet. And again, you can see in the light areas this face looking at you, reflecting off the outside of this transparent helmet he's wearing. I'd like to point out that prehistoric art from around the world depicts people with wings, artificial wings made of fairly identifiable materials. These devices are strapped onto people's bodies. They have large headdresses to use as a counterweight. Almost all of them have a large strap that hangs down between the legs. This pretty much explains why there are geoglyphs around the world. People could actually view them. So the Chinese were known to be launching people into the sky with kites over 1,000 years ago. And so we don't know how far back that technology goes. For some reason, we just say, well, Chinese invented kites 1,000 years ago or so. But so far, I've been showing you traditional rock art panels with petroglyphs pecked into them. There are a lot more kinds of rock art than just that. I showed you at Rincon, there's these giant carved heads, and the rocks all around there are covered in art. And it's not traditional petroglyphs pecked into the rock, but you can see where this rock has been modified. The dark areas are a layer of plaster with quartz crystals embedded in it. and then that's been carved away to form these various figures. In this case, I think this is some sort of naval battle, naval warfare scene. I found a small pile of these quartz plaster chips on a rock that were probably left there when the person who was working on the art chipped them off and set them there. Here's another example at Rincon of a large boulder. This one's embedded in the ground. Looks like a piece of bedrock sticking up, but I think it's the top of one of these heads, boulder that's been carved into a head that has all this art on it. This really large one by the Rincon quarry is probably unfinished. Even what just looks like a rocky hill is actually a piece of art, a painting. Again, it has this mineral quartz paint plastered onto the rock and then chipped away. More boat scenes, I think. But that's not all. Just on the ground up there, boulders and rocks and pebbles, they're all been aligned to make this art, these large mosaics. You can zoom in real close and see all the little pebbles, and they form little scenes themselves. And this is just one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, this stone mosaic at Rincon. I suggest you go to my Pinterest boards and look under the hidden rock art section and stare at this for a while. It's just incredible. All the different faces and figures you can see in this. And then when you zoom in close and look at all the little pebbles, they're all little figures. Now let's go from pebble art to the whole side of a stone quarry at Rincon. You can just see how this has been plastered and painted. A very complex scene, again, that you can view numerous ways. And to top it off at Rincon, there are stones that are carved with hieroglyphic writing. So not only are we modern humans looking at this rock art in the wrong way, we're missing about 99% of what's out there. And not only that, but it goes back to at least 30,000 years ago when people were creating rock art inside these so-called caves. As you can see, the entrance of this cave in France is actually a man-made feature that's been carved out of this hillside. And the reason they did that is because there's flint at that level. So they were mining the flint. You can see that these tunnels in this feature are all man-made. This is in no way any kind of natural cave I've ever seen. And then when you start looking at the walls where they painted some animal figures, you start seeing that this doesn't look right. It doesn't look natural at all. There's all these strange clay nodules up in the ceiling. There's 2 layers of stone that have all been rounded, and when you start looking at it, it all forms art. So I started thinking that these must be catacombs, because that's what people do underground. They bury people underground. And it's something I wish people would understand is, if it's underground, it's a tomb. There are no underground churches in Ethiopia. Those were tombs. There's no underground cities in Turkey. Those are catacombs. People don't live underground. People don't do things underground except bury people. And when you examine the art in these features, it's just like the rock art that I was showing you before. There's more to it than just the line drawings. All this dark area forms figures. You can see all the scratch marks, the lines that you can identify are outlining and sketching out faces and figures. And that these clay nodules are are man-made and inserted in there on purpose to form figures. And you look at one of these line drawings, but you can see all the different variations and the color on this wall. And if you adjust it and start looking at it, you can see all these different figures. In this case, it may be indicating cannibalism at this early age. So we've been misinterpreting art going back 30,000 years or even more. So as I look at this portrait of this man with his animals, it just makes me want to hang out with him and have a beer, play with his dogs and his otter and his monkeys. He just looks like a fun guy. Just shows we could learn so much more about these people if we would start looking at their art and quit ignoring it as something that can't be there or doesn't exist. I've found several individuals now in geoglyphs and in rock art that you can see almost who they are, and it's so intriguing to me that all this is out here, and I'm excited to discover more.